Hey chat, welcome back. My videos on commentary have been doing kind of okay, so I think I'm going to be continuing this, at least for now. Um, Today's topic is going to be an interesting one, because it's something I mentioned in the last video talking about, and I think it's garnered some interest from the people I've talked about, so, why not? Today I'm going to be talking about what it's like to organize a Minecraft event. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, I am the organizer of Ready Wars. Um, Ready Wars is a medium comp level event hosted on the server Funny Wars currently. Um, Now, a lot of people question Funny Wars because of the morals that some of the players have had, and the community is known for not so great things. But I just want to set the boundaries straight here. Ready Wars is private only. It's invite only. It's very peaceful community, very chill community. Everyone in there is vouched for, and there's no stress with that. The only connection we have to Funny Wars is playing on the server, and we have to talk to the admins to get them to host it. But some future news: Ready Wars is becoming custom, so we won't need Funny Wars anymore. Whoa, I just turned off my mic. Lol. Yeah, so Ready Wars is becoming custom, and I figured now would be a great time to talk about what my role as the organizer of Ready Wars is and what it will look like in the future for me, because obviously with a custom comes building and coding and game design, and those are things that I'm not quite so good at. But let's start with the obvious. How did I come about Ready Wars? So Ready Wars was started kind of on a whim, to be honest. I wanted to organize an event for my friends, and basically what happened was me and a friend were just like, "Yo, what if we just hosted a Funny Wars?" Because at the time, there was not that many hosted or organized events where you could just buy the event. Um, Things like Bug Boy buying PB hadn't happened yet. So there wasn't a whole lot you could do outside of reach out to the organizer and ask them, "Hey, will you organize this event? Will you organize this event for me?" Whatever. And Funny Wars had public and private minis that you could buy, and you could buy unlimited amounts of them. And so what we did is we bought a private Funny Wars, and I invited uh I can't remember how many people played. It was 5 teams of 12. I think it was teams of 5. So I think we had 60 players for the event 0. Um, and we invited friends, content creators, whatever, to play this mini. And it went over really well. The organization wasn't really much of an organization to begin with. We didn't have a set roster yet. We mostly just invited our friends and people we knew. They invited some people. Teams were based off who knew who and who wanted to team with who. I think we had signups, but I can't really remember, to be honest. It's been so long. But it definitely was not the same Ready Wars that we organized today. So I guess I'll kind of talk through what a normal Ready Wars event will look like for me. Um, so the first thing I do when organizing Ready Wars is I decide on a date. And how I do this is I go into the staff chat and I basically ping them all and be like, "Here are the dates that could work for this event. Here are the days that I'm available to play. The run requirement for every Ready Wars is I must be there. Um, that is true for the custom event too. I will be playing in every Ready Wars. Um, Now, will I be playing in every Ready Wars? No, but you'll see what I mean when I talk about it later. Um, but I will be every Funny Wars Ready Wars we hosted, and any future Funny Wars Ready Wars we host I will be there and I will be participating. That is kind of the way it at. So that is how we decide the date based off what I can do. And then I ask the staff who can make which of these dates, what are these blackout dates? And I kind of look at the staff and see what their blackout dates, what the most common blackout dates are. I also look at event sheets to see what days that other events are on, so we're not kind of overlapping times and overlapping days. And then I kind of think about what time would I like to host the event at. I think we've started hosting anywhere from 2 to 4 EST in the past. So usually that's how we decide the team. And then I go and I create a sign up form. Um, this sign up form is your very standard sign up form. It has your name, your Discord name, your Twitter account, so we can post you. Uh, it has how do you want to play? It has who do you want to team with? Who do you not want to team with? Color preference. I can't remember what else it has, but it's your very standard sign up form, right? It's nothing crazy. You don't have to work too crazy hard on it. It's not like, oh, why do you want to play? It's not like one of those sign up forms. It's not like to get in the roster. Yeah, it's your standard sign up form, and then we go and we process that all, and that all goes into a Google form, which is then transferred to a Google Sheet. And so as signups are coming in, I'm seeing who's signing up and all that information through a Google Sheet that I share with the rest of the staff and mainly the team makers. Then we decide on a closing date for signups, and about 2 or 3 days before the signups close, I get together with my staff and my team makers, and I'm like, okay, here's kind of a draft list of who I'm interested in putting in, what duos I would like to see happen, and here's like a draft teams of what I made. And then we go in and we look at and make a new set of teams, all as together. And then on the last day of signups, after they're closed, I confirm with staff that this is what we're happy with. We substitute in and out players, especially players who might have signed up later in the process that we didn't see on our initial run through that we would like to include. And then we announce the teams. And now this all usually happens about a month before the event, and then teams are released in the Discord about 2 to 3 weeks beforehand. Then usually I have to make graphics. We have designated graphics makers. Shout out CDog. CDog has made the templates for the graphics, and what I have to do is I have to go and get every single profile picture, usually with the help of CDog, and put them and their names into the graphics. Standard graphics making procedure, right? Nothing to be really worried about. And then I post the teams. Recently, however, I've not been posting the teams. June G-Neg has been posting the teams. And I make sure that June knows what she needs to do and when to post the teams. And then my other jobs include, as organizer, dealing with substitutes. I have to, when someone tells me they're subbing out, whether they DM me directly, say it in the team chat, or tell someone else, and I find out afterwards, which I think is a little weird why you wouldn't tell the organizer that you're subbing out, but it's not my business, and I just move on. And so my job is to find a proper substitute for the team, along with the other team makers. They help, and they confirm my choices usually. If it's a few days before the event, if it's like a week before the event, if it's well before the event, usually the substitutes are more carefully considered. We look through all of our options. In the Discord, there's usually either a form that you can fill out to be a substitute or a reaction message to be a substitute. We did the form for, I think, one event, but the problem we had is people were too lazy to fill out the form, to be honest. And so we went back to our old reaction message kind of style, and that works for us. And to be honest, it's a process for sure. And then the day of the event, my job is to pay for the event, to make sure that the event is running and I'm good to go. My job is to make any last minute subs in case people drop out last minute. Usually we have about 10 sub outs on the day. We have 48 players in every given event. So it's a lot of people. And so sub outs are quite common. And those last minute sub outs where people don't show up or they sub out like 30 minutes before the event, those are probably usually the most stressful because that's when we have less sub options. We don't know exactly who's still available from that sub reaction list. And we still want to try to find good, fair subs, but also subs that work well with the team. And it's usually just a complicated process to deal with on the day of the event. And then I'm also in charge of making sure there's no issues while the event is happening, whether it be someone has to leave or whatever it be. That's my job. And then after the event, I send out a little message in the Discord, um, letting them know my thoughts and what to look forward to. And I obviously go check in on other teams. I go chat with them in their VCs if they're still there. I do the good old end of the event. Let me make sure that everyone had a good time. And I always make sure to get feedback and response forms from people who are interested. And yeah, that's basically how a standard Ready Wars event will runs on most times. I also do inviting. So I am the head invitation person, player manager for the roster, which means if someone is invited, they are 97% of the time invited by me to the Discord. They're not invited by someone else. Almost every player goes through one of two vouching processes. Either they express interest to be in the roster through whatever it be, and they are put in the vouch channel by someone else or by me. If I have been told, hey, I'm interested in being in the event, I'll put them in the vouch channel. And then there's standard checks and X's process to see who the current roster thinks would be a good fit to invite to the roster. And from there, then they get invited if we determine that they are a good fit for the roster. The other way people get invited is through my personal judgment. As the player manager for the event, as the organizer and the owner of the event, I get the final say in who gets to play in the event. And because of that, there are some invites that happen where I'm just like, oh, I think this person would be cool to add to the roster. This is someone I want to add to the roster, whether it be my friend, a content creator I think is cool, whatever. I invite them to the roster. They do not need to go to the vouchers process. There's a chance they might. I've had this happen before where there's someone who goes through the vouchers process, but I was already thinking of inviting them anyways. So that happens sometimes, and that is another way people get into the Ready Wars roster. The only other way that people have gotten into the Ready Wars roster is invitation by another staff member on special request, or by invitation for another player by special request. I know, for example, we had one player who got invited by a staff member because they were interested in having them in the roster. I was not as familiar with them, but I thought, I trust the judgment of a staff member. And they were invited by the staff member, and they have been a very good part of the roster since, so it was a good decision. Another thing we have done in the past is for our low comp event that unfortunately never ended up happening, we put out signups. So people filled out the form to be part of the event, and it was only posted in the roster Discord, and they were sent around to friends. So anybody who was lower comp and was sent the form most likely got in. Most of the people who were sent the form by a roster member got into that event. You will never know the teams unless they're publicly shared by me in the future, but that is something that happened. Now, I want to talk next about what future Ready Wars might look like, because obviously as my event has grown, I've had to make changes to the event and how I organize and how I run it, and that's part of the organization scene that I don't think a lot of people know about, is the changes that happen over time, because it's not just, oh, you do one process every single time, it's the same thing, because you're working constantly with a different set of roster of players every single time. Not the same 48 people are playing my event every time. Not the same people sign up every time, etc., etc. Now, I will share this. Currently, Ready Wars is on break to become a custom event. We have wanted to do this for a while. However, I am not a coder or a builder. I will put an image of one of my builds on screen right now to show that I am not a builder. And as such, we have not been able to do this as of yet. However, we recently added staff members onto the team to help us with this goal. We have been planning out this event for quite a while, but the building and the other processes have not happened up until recently, up until we went on our break, because we did not have any staff members who were builders, who were coders consistently, because we had mostly had staff members who were moderators, who were team makers, etc. So that is one big change that has happened with the Ready Wars roster recently. And because of that, my job has now looked a little bit different, because now I have to also organize that. I'm not either of those things, so my job is delegation. I need to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do, what they said they're doing, and that we can get on track consistently. And that the event and the builds and the coding all happens in a way that is to the design of what we want Ready Wars to be in the future. With that has come two things with the Ready Wars roster in specific that me as the player manager and organizer has had to deal with. First of all, we did a purge. I originally went into Ready Wars saying I would never do a purge because I thought that, the standard, it's unfair to people who get purged because they still probably want to play or whatever. And, it's oftentimes smaller people who get purged, or, people who you might not know, or whatever it be. And I originally went in saying I'd never do a purge. But to be honest, I think my mindset has changed a little bit in that fact. I think that, to be honest, I think the purge was a good thing for the Ready Wars roster. Now I'll share this. Most of the people that were purged from the Ready Wars roster were people who had not signed up for an event or were inactive. That's being they hadn't ever signed up for the event. They hadn't signed up in like 4 or 5 signups of the event. They hadn't chatted in the Discord. They haven't had expressed future interest. Now, I gave multiple opportunities for these said people to express future interest. I have received many DMs from some people saying, I didn't play because Funny Wars, or I didn't play because, I don't know, I was busy or whatever. But I would still be interested in future events. I would be interested in the custom event, etc. And a lot of those people got to stay because they did express interest in further continuation, even if at the time they hadn't played very much. The other kind of people that were purged were people that were harder to deal with teams. So that be mostly some higher skilled players, not just because they were higher skilled, but because they were hard to fit on teams, and I didn't feel fair just keeping them in the roster but constantly benching them. People who do not have a microphone. We had a few people who did not have a microphone, and we are moving towards a focus of content and growth, and it is hard to put people on a team when they do not have a microphone. A lot of people are uncomfortable with that, whatever it be. So we purged those people. We also purged people we felt were no longer right fits for the roster. Whatever. There was purges all around. So we went from a roster about 100 people to like 200 people to 150. It wasn't like we purged the whole roster. It was like a fourth of the roster. And I think it was a safe thing to do for Ready Wars, for growth. I'm not a person who wants to keep around people who, I think Mr. Beast said this at some point. He was like, if you don't see this person here in a couple years down the line, then why hold them from future growth now, right? Like, I'm not going to hold someone from just sitting in the roster, never going to play, just because I feel bad that they're going to get purged, right? That doesn't just make sense to me. Now, the other thing we did with the Ready Wars roster is we split it. So as I mentioned before with Ready Wars, I'm looking to take it in a growth aspect. As an organizer, this is something that I had to decide on whether or not I wanted it to remain very friend focused, put towards content creators, towards growth. What did I want to do with the Ready Wars roster going forward? And what I kind of decided is both, which isn't really a decision, but it's something that I felt was important. I obviously am a smaller creator myself, and I'm friends with a lot of smaller creators, and I'm friends with a lot of people who are not creators because they're just good friends of mine. And I still want them to very much be able to participate in my event. I think they deserve spots. I don't think that anyone deserves a spot any less because of their size. But I also want to grow my event. I'm very passionate about my event, and I think that it deserves the chance to shine just as much as any other event. Um, and with that comes the need for content creators, the need for people who can stream the event consistently, who can bring in viewers, who can bring in new audiences to the event, popularity, whatever it be. So what I decided to do is split the roster in two. One side of the event is content creators. This is people who are consistent at making content, are willing to stream the event or record the event or upload a video on the event. This is people who have a background of being in streamed situations. It wasn't necessarily follower count at all. We have people in both rosters with high follower counts or decent follower size accounts. It was more on what roster did I feel like you fit best in. The other roster is the OG roster, as what we're calling it. OG not being original, but OG being the gang, like kind of like the homies, you know. These are people that might not necessarily be content creators. They aren't streamers. They, you know, are more just here because they're friends with me or they're friends with other people on the roster. And I still want them a place to participate where they can have fun with friends, you know. This is like the friend side of the roster. And something we did is we gave every single person the chance to have a choice. We made a draft list of every single person in the roster that's remained after the purge and where we think they should be in the roster. People had a chance to DM me and say they would prefer to be in this roster or this roster. And that wasn't guaranteed, but it was something I considered. That is because I feel like if you want to be considered a content creator, there are certain guidelines you have to hit. Not number based, but like you have to create consistent content, whatever. And there are some people who wanted to be in the content creator rosters that weren't content creators, weren't streamers, weren't making content, whatever. So those weren't guaranteed. But it was something I always looked into. Every person who was like, I want to be in the content creator roster, I looked into it and I was like, hey, this is where they're at with content. This is the guidelines I want for a content creator. This is what I'm thinking of as a content creator. Are they hitting or close to those goals? And if they were, then I highly consider their interest in being in the content creator roster. One thing we did with the content creator roster is it's a lot smaller than the OG roster. That is because the OG roster is not going to have nearly as many newcomers come the return of Ready Wars versus the content creator roster, which is very much planned to have newcomers, to bring new faces and new audiences to the event. We also have people in both rosters, which I want to mention because you might see that happen. But yeah, that was a very whole process for me because it was like not a simple 1 minute process. It was like a month-long thing that my staff members can tell you I worked on very hard to make sure that everyone felt like the right fit. And we're still making changes to that roster. We're still getting people that want people to change rosters or whatever, and I'm still looking into it. And I got a DM from someone the other day that's like, hey, I would like to be in the content roster. Here's what I do for content. Here are the people I know. I understand if maybe I have to get benched a little bit more to be in the content creator roster, but I would rather have the chance to play in that roster and be in that roster. And that person has been moved to the content creator roster because they gave a very fair pitch on why they should be in the content creator roster. I looked into it and it made sense. So they're in the content creator roster. So we're constantly changing things and things are constantly going. Now, this video has gone on for quite a long time, this commentary. I don't need it to be like 6 years. So I'm just going to finish out with one thing. If you want to be an event owner or you want to be an event organizer, make sure you know what you're getting into. I have been in this community for years and I love organizing. I love team making. I've always loved that. And so I've known I wanted to run an event for a while. But it's not something anyone can be prepared for. You know, you can't just create an event one day and be like, oh, I'm an event organizer now. It's a stressful process. You will get hate from it. I have gotten a lot of hate from substitutes and team making because people thought things were unfair, whatever it be. I have gotten people mad at me because they didn't get what they wanted. It is a stressful process to have to manage 100 plus, 200 plus people constantly and make everyone happy. It's a very stressful thing. You are constantly on your toes, constantly waiting for that next DM that's like, hey, I don't want to be in this event anymore. Hey, I don't like my team. Hey, this was dumb. You are constantly waiting for that because it is something that you constantly have to do. Not to mention all the things you have to organize and manage at the exact same time. Like, I'm not just making the teams. I'm inviting the players. I'm creating the signups. I'm managing a staff team. It's not something that takes 20 minutes to do every single event. You have to be ready and prepared to do it. And it's definitely something that you're not going to be ready for unless you prepare yourself for it. One other thing, inviting players, you have to be confident in yourself. You need to pitch your event. You need to explain why my event. Why do you want to come play? Here's why you should come play. You have to be strong and confident with that because I know a lot of people will just be like, yo, play my event, and they'll send it to the biggest content creator ever, and that person won't join, or they'll join and never sign up because you haven't given them an actual reason to play your event. You've just given them an invite. When you're an inviting person, you're telling this person, I want you to play my event, so you need to sign up. Here is why you should sign up. That is something I think a lot of people don't get. You can invite people all you want. You can send people Discord links, but unless you encourage people to sign up and tell them why you should sign up and convince them why you should sign up, they're not going to sign up. They're not going to want to play. They're not going to stick around. Even if they play one event, they're not going to stick around if you haven't given them a good reason to play your event. So that's a piece of feedback. Anyways, this was a very great talk. I felt like it was a lot more positive. My throat is starting to hurt though, because I've been talking for almost 30 minutes now. Leave down below what you want to see me talk about next. I have a couple ideas in mind, but as usual, I want to hear what you guys have to say. And yeah, that's all. Thank you, chat. Bye.